My name is Gloria Mutyaba, and I am the programs director of an organization based in Uganda called Freedom and Roam Uganda. The abbreviation for it is FARUG. That is how people popularly know it as. We were the first organization in Uganda to organize around sexual orientation and gender identity. But we're also the oldest organization that's exclusively serving LBQ women in Uganda. Yeah. So we'll be making, I think, like 19 years this year. And wow, it has been a journey. So interestingly, so the movement, the LGBT movement in Uganda was started over 20 years ago, and it was started by women. So the founders of FARUG, three of them, Kasia, Victor, who has since then transitioned, he now identifies as a trans man, and Rachel, who is a lesbian woman that is in asylum in the US, started this organization, but basically started the movement. And predominantly FARUG was started as, so we were formed on a social basis, as a socializing place. So it wasn't until I think around 2006 that we went really political in our organizing. Previously, we were just a social space. So it was just this space that queer women, actually not even just women, queer people would meet and socialize. So like right from the beginning that the movement was started by women, a lot of women grew in activism. Kasia herself, who was the founder, mentored quite a number of people. Most of the directors that have come here after Kasia have been people that have been mentored by her, including Biggie, who is the current ED. I myself am a protege of Kasia. I joined the movement in 2009 when I was at university, and by then the anti-homosexuality bill was in Parliament. So some of the organizing that FARUG as an organization was doing is mobilizing in different spaces to find young LGBT people to create popular support that is going to fight against the bill. So at university, I was among the people that volunteered to do organizing at university. So like having talks with our professors, having talks with our fellow students, doing protests. And then we also ran a very beautiful campaign that I remember where it was called Let Us Live in Peace. So in this campaign, we would have like different pictures of people that looked ordinary to the layperson's eye. And then we would tell them like, any of this person can be gay. You get it? So it can be your neighbor, your friend, your partner, your sister. So let us live in peace. And so we would go around town, because I was doing that at university. So I would go around university and plaster these posters all over university. And they would annoy people so much. So in the morning, you would wake up and they have tore all the posters. So you would pass like people, and they don't know the one who put the posters there. So you'd pass people saying, if we find the people that put these posters, we will kill them. And then at night, you would go and put others again. And then in the morning, you would walk around. So my journey as a leader and as an activist has been different because I am a lesbian who is very feminine presenting. So I pass quite a lot. So there are spaces and platforms where I have had access that very many LBQ persons do not have access to, just based on how I look. So like people easily give me audience, they listen to me. Be it women, be it men, but also on the other hand, my sexuality is trivialized a lot because I look typically like a non-LBQ woman would look like. So they'll be like, are you sure you're lesbian? Maybe you're in it for the money. Maybe you've failed to find a man to marry you. Maybe you haven't had good sex with a man. Maybe we should rape you and make you understand or give you the feeling of what good sex feels like. And because of the church, so most of the LBQ leaders and women that are out and can speak, I am masculine presenting because they have come to a point where, sorry for my French, but like a fuck you phase where they do not care anymore. So like for us who are feminine presenting, along the way, most times people end up like giving up and probably getting married to please the parents. So one of my deliberate efforts as an LBQ leader is to groom, because there's a term that they use here. They call me a lipstick lesbian. So, so one of my missions as a lipstick leader is to make sure I groom more lipstick leaders, to be able to have like an army of lipstick leaders, because we easily access spaces in a way that our other counterparts do not. Yes. So grooming looks like ensuring that these girls are assertive, you know. First of all, they have to learn how to speak English, ensuring that they're assertive, teaching them things about like feminism, teaching them about their rights. So that is very easy for them to stand up in spaces and speak out. Yes. Because the audience is easy for us to get. So I could typically stand in a group of men and they'll listen to me because the whole time they're just admiring me. If it's a masculine presenting person, they'll not even give her the time of the day. They'll probably want to attack her. For me, on the other hand, they will listen just because they're enjoying looking at you, but either way, your message is being passed across. So I'm a queer woman myself. So one of the things I face a lot is a lot of sexual harassment, like a lot of sexual harassment. Some of it like physical, some of it like verbal, but like typically it has become the norm of the day for people to walk up to me and threaten to rape me. Like, sad as this sounds, it is something that my brain has now registered and gotten used to, that it no longer even like scares me. Because like just people will just like comfortably just say, they're like, I will rape you. You are a total wastage of womanhood. How can you even want another woman when you look like that? I should rape you and teach you how to like be a proper woman. But also, so many of them are in marriages, forced marriages. Many of them marry just to make their families happy. Some of them marry to protect their jobs. But some of them are, as an organization, we've received many of these cases. Some of them are actually abducted and handed over to marriages. Like they'll practically abduct you and hand you over to this man. So just imagine what this girl deals with, because that is a marriage that is not based on love. So it's going to be a lot of domestic violence. There's going to be a lot of rape, you know? Yeah. Sometimes they don't even have a support system where they can go and report. Legal access to legal aid, first of all, for instance, is very hard. Access to medical care. Because I am very feminine, my preference of people I date actually quite masculine. So a lot of the violence I first come from my partner, who I am dating. So many times we've gone to like them to the hospital, and my partner, they refuse to serve us. Or maybe they treated me and refused to treat my partner because he looks weird. We've been to restaurants and they refuse to serve us food, or they would serve me and not serve my partner. Like my partner's life on a daily is a life where you are not acknowledged. Like your existence is not acknowledged. Like they really treat you like you are a ghost, like you're not there. Like even to my friends, like probably like my siblings or my friends or my cousins, people that are close to me, even when I introduce my partner, we'll go for family events and they will not talk to her. Like even when she tries to say hello, like they will ghost her out and make it appear like this person does not even exist. I'm like, guys, this is my partner. This is the person I love. Why want to acknowledge them and treat them like right? So yeah, also lots of discrimination in like employment, unfair dismissal from school, unfair dismissal from work without compensation. Like currently we are handling a case where a couple, their landlord knocked at their door in the middle of the night and threw them out. Yet they were not even due on rent. He was just like, I cannot have homosexuals in my house. You need to leave. But imagine someone knocking on your door in the middle of the night at 4 in the morning when you're sleeping and ask you to leave. Where do you even start? It's 4 in the morning. He threw them out and closed the door, and they were in nightwear, cold outside. I was cold while I was sleeping at 4, and I pick up and someone's crying. They're like, I am outside. They're going to kill me. My landlord has thrown me out. So I had to get out of bed and then go. But also me as a person, I am risking because I do not know where I'm walking into. I do not even have the physical strength to fight. But the homophobia makes you so angry that so many times you even forget that you do not have the physical energy to fight people off. So someone will call you because you know what this feels like. Someone will call you at 4 and tell you, I have been thrown out of my home. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to go there. Then you get there and find 20 people, and then you're standing there like, what was I thinking? It helps people to come out of a shell and be able to speak. Like we do not really, like people really underestimate the power of building leadership in a queer woman, because the leadership will go all the way to home. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago because of how much I have grown as a leader. There are conversations where I could not even challenge like my parents or family. But now it starts at home where I live. Now I can like stand up to my mom. I'm like, Mom, you know what? I'm a lesbian. And that is it. You're going to have to deal with that. She's like, then you don't belong here. I'm like, yes, I belong here. I'm not going to leave. I couldn't even talk to my mom like that 10 years ago because I was scared. Allows you to challenge people, challenge laws, stand up for yourself, but also it asserts you in a position where you're able to ask for what you deserve. So when I'm asking for a job, for instance, I have to understand what your policy is on stigma and discrimination. I don't want you to wake up one day and just fire me based on my sexual orientation or gender identity. I wouldn't know that if I hadn't been groomed as a leader. And sometimes, even the way you answer me, I'll be like, nah, I'm not going to take this job because this is going to be a very toxic working space for me, for instance. Medical care, like I'm challenging hospitals I walk into. And I'm with the health worker, and the health worker is like asking, for instance, are you all girls? Is this partner of yours? Is that a man or a woman? I'm like, how is that your business? I am here to receive medical care. Like, just treat me. And sometimes, like, maybe the hospital policy is not so bad, but the people that are working are the ones that are not good. So I'm like, I need to see your manager. Next thing you know, they are shrinking. They're like, no, we are sorry, you know. And so since we are a membership-based organization, this is also very important because every day I witness journeys of queer women looking back on who they were when they joined the organization, and maybe 3, 4, 5 years later, who they are now. You can see the progress, you can see the change in how they speak, in how they relate, in the choices they make about their bodies, about who they date. Like, you can see the change. Yes, with support from Womankind, we had the first Uganda Lesbian Feminist Forum. Oh God, that had been a dream come true for I don't know how many years. So this was a space where we brought together LGBTQ activists from across the country. So many places across Uganda to one common space to just deliberate on a common agenda of how we can organize in the country. So basically it was just like intergenerational and rural urban interactions. So it was a space where we are sharing like, okay, I'm from up country and my experience as a leader is this and this. How can you people support me? So that is one of the ways. So what was so unique about this is it was a formal, informal space where it was just a space for us to interact and learn from each other. It was so different from the other spaces where you probably like bring a consultant who's like a professional in leadership development. It was us learning from one another. The founders of the movement were there and they were trying to share with us their journey and their challenges and how they've overcome. People who are in media, like people who are like different people are sharing with us their experiences, but also sharing with us what role they are playing, how they are contributing to the movement. It was a beautiful space. It was a beautiful space. Oh God. So that is one of the ways, but also as an organization, we deliberately have leadership institutes where we map out grassroots activists and over a period of time, often usually a year, grow them in leadership. So we'll map out and find like a grassroots activist, and then we find an activist like me who has been in activism for a while. So they will match me to like 2 or 3 people, and over a period of 1 year, I'll mentor them. So I'll teach them about public speaking, about advocacy, about like so many things, proposal writing, fundraising, yeah. So what has happened after? Quite a number of organizations that were there. So we have continued as a movement to work. So one of the things that resulted out of it is, so now we have a directors forum that came out of the Feminist Forum. So often directors meet and support each other. We are also starting a communications forum for communications persons of LBQ organizations to also meet and support each other. So support each other's work, be able to learn and grow from each other. But then also we are doing like, so we have what they call districts here. I don't know how you call them. They are probably provinces or states. So we have those that are a little bit urban, and then we have those that are very rural based. And so the urban based are usually have grown quite a lot because a lot of organizing started happening in the urban areas. So also what UGALIF has done is to consolidate and strengthen work that is happening in the rural area. So we also focused a lot on supporting our sisters that are from the rural area to be able to grow. We also see a lot of like partnerships from organizations working together. So often you'll see like Women's Day, three different organizations will come together and, you know, put something together, work on like joint campaigns, work on joint projects, do consortiums and that kind of thing. But then also, so UGALIF was part of a broader consortium called WAVE, which was women's empowerment for women's advocacy for empowerment. So also besides only us, we also fit into the broader women's movement. So also how we are working with the broader women's movement itself. For the first time last year, we had, for the first time, it was last year, 2019, for the first time, we had so many queer women at the Uganda Feminist Forum. I think there were like 30 of us. That had never happened in the history of UFF. Actually, in the first UFF, people walked out of the UFF because queer women had been invited. Now, we had 30 queer women. It has conversations about inclusion of trans women in the Uganda Feminist Forum. Yes, so some of the things you see instantly, some of them you see over a long period of time. But what the importance of what has come out of that is movement building and solidarity building. So as LBQ women, we have built this movement where we know we can support each other, but we have also found allies within the broader women's movement that we can also count on their solidarity. Yeah. So a lot of it has affected our organizing because, like I told you earlier, we were formed on grounds of socializing. So being able to come together in one space is the heart of our existence as FARUG. And because of COVID and social distancing and standard operating procedures, we can't come together like we used to. And that has affected very many LGBTQ women because, like, this is home. This is the safe space. Like, this is a place where they will come and, for instance, be able to kiss and not be judged. This is a place where they'll be able to come and probably watch a lesbian movie and nobody's going to turn off the TV. Like, this is the place where they can get for once to be themselves. And COVID has taken that away from them. So there's a lot of, like, one of the biggest challenges we're having now is so many LBQ women are suffering with depression that was brought to them by the isolation that was caused by COVID. But also painfully, because of the economic implications of COVID, some of them had to go back home to families that are abusive and that are homophobic. So now, because people can't afford, because they lost their jobs, for instance, they're forced back home with very homophobic families and family members. And it's very, very painful. Yeah, but also as an organization, like reevaluating how we work, it has taken a toll on our mental health, but also our physical health itself. That time when we had like a total lockdown was the time we worked the hardest as FARUG. Oh God, it was so physically exhausting because now we had to move the services from office to people's doors. And that was hard. And also, like, transport had been halted, so we would walk long distances to make sure people have access to sanitary towels, for instance. Someone wants a lawyer, someone wants a doctor, someone wants medication, someone wants a counselor, you know. So many days we would sleep in office because we are trying to make sure we are able to reach, because, like, this is the hope that people have. Someone will call you and they're like, COVID forced me back with my family. There are stigmatizing me, they're discriminating me so much that I feel like I want to end my life. I'm going to do it today. And that is an emergency. You can't stop. So somehow you have to walk, I don't know how many miles to make sure I get to this person and tell them, no, I'm here. Then the danger it put in us as staff, our office itself became as a what? Like a safety hub. But then also government was, because of social distancing, did not want households that had so many people. So basically we're also going almost against. So it was a very hard time for us. I remember when the lockdown was lifted, we came back to office and just hugged each other, and you could see that tiredness in everyone's eyes. People were very exhausted. But we have kept moving. We have kept going forward. We are quite overwhelmed with the number of mental health issues and depression we have to handle, but we are slowly hanging in there. So there's this new thing we have started called Regeneration Circles that are meant at basically regenerating and holding the space for people and allowing them to share their challenges with other LBQ women, so that those women also know that, you're not alone. So now we are doing like virtual regeneration circles, but also so we could do them like online, or sometimes we could just call each other and like 4 people over a period of time have a virtual regeneration circle. And that is also helping. But also since office is open now, that's why we decided to invest a lot in wellness, because we wanted to try to make this space okay for people to just come and unload after all they have been dealing with. Domestic violence increased, like people were fighting with their partners like crazy. I, for instance, was in a very abusive relationship. We used to pick on each other a bit, but because we were working, we would all leave home and go to work. We had a little bit of breathers. So by the time we came back home, probably you were tired and just go to bed. Now, this lockdown had us stuck together. And we got to a point where we just couldn't stand each other anymore. So there was a lot of fighting. At some point, it got physical. My partner lost their shit and went outside and just began screaming. At the end of it, the day, everyone now knew that we are a couple. So now I was endangered. She ran away and went to her friends, left me in the house. And for 3 days, non-stop, every night, men would come and knock at my door. They'll be like, we are here to teach you how to be a proper woman. So I had to move from my house and then began living in office because my home was no longer safe. And now already with the implications of COVID on your mental health, you can't imagine not being able to access what you feel is a safe space for you. So you're stranded in office, there's no bed, you're sleeping on desks. And that is just my experience. So many people had better experiences than that. So yeah, I'm like, why can I not sleep in my bed? Why is my partner so selfish? See what they did. No, I can't even sleep. It's so cold. Oh. But I was able to relocate to somewhere now. I mean, a way safer neighborhood. The people there do not know about my sexuality, but also what such an incident does to you, it leaves ghosts of this past with you for quite a long time. I'm very paranoid. Like, I'm very paranoid now. Like, even a neighbor just staring at me for a long time, probably they would look at you because you're smart, but the whole time I'm like, oh God, do they know? Oh God, do they attack me? Like, I'm just living my life on just eggshells. That's the biggest number of house evictions we have ever gotten in the history of the organization. Because now these people are home, so that's now how they know you are a couple. Because usually you would leave very early in the morning and come back, so maybe they would not even notice. But now all your neighbors are at home, so they are watching. There was a couple who was having like, what word should I use? Making out. And then their neighbors came and broke down their door in the middle of making out, and they were naked. And now these neighbors were taking pictures of them. Like, no one has a right to break your door and begin taking pictures of you when you're not dressed because you're making out with someone of the same. Like, nobody has that right. And that is what happened. And it took them, even up to now, one of those girls has never healed from it. She still has nightmares because of how that's traumatized. People are seeing your nakedness. People are taking pictures of your nakedness. People are pulling you up and down. Oh, Uganda. So I was saying, like, we recognize the role that women's rights funds and organizations have played in helping us to continue sustaining the work we are doing to support women. But also women leaders, like how they immediately thought of solutions to some of the problems that were caused by COVID. Like, for instance, trying to figure out like emergency grants to get women back on their feet, because most of the women here are working in the informal sector anyway. So like emergency grants help them continue working, but also like emergency relief. So like food, especially when the lockdown was really bad. So like food, because now like for FARUG, one of the things we did was emergency relief. So we would give, we purchased food and help take food to LBQ women's houses, help take them like sanitary wear, you know, like basic things that they need to be able to go through the time. But also, one of the things we have had to rethink is, because so many LBQ women lost their jobs, we have had to rethink what our work is around economic empowerment. Like, what are the things, what are the skills, what are the resources we can make available to LBQ women to help them find alternative ways of sustaining themselves. Yeah, so we are doing we are doing things that we weren't doing before. Like, let me say, farming, teaching people how to rear like livestock, teaching people how to, you know, weave, make soap, like alternative things that they can do from home, or that do not require a lot of capital or input, financial input, yes, so that they can continue to earn a living one way or another. So speaking for my country, the largest population here are women, and most of them are young people, but also women are very vulnerable, and most of the women here, like the biggest percentage, are working in the informal sector. And here in Uganda, that was the sector that was hit hardest by the pandemic. So it's very important for the government to think of that relief, because the truth is women in Uganda are like the primary caregivers, like they're the heads of the home, they're taking care of children, they're doing almost everything. So if they're not able to have, we have so many like single mothers, some of them singled by maybe their partner died, or they divorced, or they walked out of an abusive relationship, or they were raped. So those people, the country needs to be able to provide means to help get them back on their feet, because those are the kinds of people in Uganda that were hit hardest by the pandemic. But our system is so that it usually prioritizes men and what suits them and what works for them, yeah. On the basis of being an LBQ woman, like, so, especially for masculine presenting lesbians, it is hard for them to find jobs in formal employment because of how they look. Like, people just judge them based on how they look. So they're like, so the biggest percentage are working in the informal sector. They're working as barbers, they're selling foodstuffs, they're selling clothes, shoes, and that is the sector that was hit hardest by the pandemic. Now, there's this queer woman who was trying to earn her living and sustain herself, and the economy has hit her so much, and she has nowhere to run to, and her family probably the family, her relationship with her family is so dysfunctional, they threw her out. So she's just stranded. And she's willing to work, like she's just stranded. She has nowhere else to run. So even if there were like relief for women, when she turns up, like, so there was, for instance, food relief here in Uganda. So government said they were giving food to the most vulnerable, and they would prioritize women. But this is what happened. For masculine presenting women, many of them were refused food. Because every time the people giving out, most of the people who are giving out that food were men. When they go there, they're like, you're a man, you don't need this food. They will pass it over to someone else. And you'll be like, so now where is this person even supposed to get something to eat? Because as the men are bullying her, and the women are also not accepting her. So where is she even supposed to find something to eat? And now she's stranded in this house alone, and oh God. So our constituency itself, the constituency we are serving, LGBTQ women have been hit so hard by that pandemic, so hard. Like often like it's now very common for someone to just call you and they're like, I have not eaten for 3 days. I am starving. Could you please give me something to eat? And then you're looking. So we appreciate organizations like Womankind for funds that are flexible, like resilience, which was given to us to help us like counter the implications of COVID on our organization, but also individuals. It helps, first of all, it helps make things easier for the rest of us, but also it creates a lot of impact when you're in a position where you can make change. So for instance, when you can influence policies, when you can influence, let me say, like national budget allocation, because then we as a community get to be served in a better way. Yes, by the fact. So if, let me say, like a queer woman is in a position of member of parliament, it's going to be easy for them to fight against a bill passing that criminalizes, same-sex relationships. Or if they're in a member of parliament, it's going to be easy if they're in, let me say, like Ministry of Health, it's going to be easy for them to make sure that as they are budgeting, the budgets are gender responsive, but also have sections or allocations to prioritize health for LGBTQ people. So yeah. Feminism is my tribe. We keep saying that's retarded, but I'm like for me, feminism, I don't know what I would do without feminism. I feel like I took so long to even learn and understand about feminism. Because what feminism means to me is it gives me the strength and the power to be able to challenge anything and anybody that tries to oppress me. So sometimes like things happen and I want to keep quiet. And then I have this voice whispering like, oh God, Gloria, you're a feminist. No, you can't. No, you can't let that happen. So it just gives me like the voice and the strength. Sometimes I do things and later on I'm in my bed, I'm like, was that me? What was I thinking? Who do I think I am? Because of the urgency it gives you, it helps you recognize yourself and understand yourself. It helps you tap into your power. But it also gives you an attitude that is fearless. Like you're not scared. I'm not scared. Yes, I'm not scared. Like I comfortably just now I'm able to talk about all the very hard topics to talk about. I can talk about abortion. So if you're arguing about abortion, I'm like, but someone has a right to choose what they want to do with their body. I didn't know that 10 years ago. I can talk about religion. Feminism interplays into so many things because when we think about feminism, we only think about women's rights. But there are so many things, so many world problems that feminism can help us solve, including bad governance, including environmental, like so many things. If people knew that, then so many young women would be interested in understanding and learning about feminism because it plays. So feminist leadership to me means a leadership that empowers women, but also a leadership that cares about women. Because one thing that feminist leadership has taught me as a person is well-being and wellness. That I never really overthought before. And now that I know about it, so it empowers you, but then it empowers you and checks you, which is very interesting about feminist leadership, because it's empowering you to stand up on yourself, stand up for yourself and for others, but it's also checking you not to let that power corrupt you. So how am I, instead of saying how am I pushing my sister, it is how am I holding my sister's hand? Yeah. If we are, for instance, running a race and that is the finishing line, do I just drag her even when she can't move because I want to finish? Or do I stop for a second and give her a bottle of water? I'm like, you know what, drink this. It's going to give you some more energy so we can finish the race. So it has just taught me to appreciate caring about women while fighting for them. Appreciate the role. Like it does, like what feminist leadership does for you is it shows you that you're not the only person who is doing this work. Like it makes you appreciate what other people have done and allows you to see where do I fit in. Because as I'm doing my feminism, I understand that I'm also riding on the shoulders of people that came before me, but also I have a responsibility to build other people because maybe 20 years from now or 30 years from now, they will also be riding on my shoulder as they're building other.